What's going on, everyone? My name is Chad Pyke. Welcome to the EPM show. This is all things enterprise performance management, and we're here to give you an unfair career advantage. Today, we have Bob Mahr and Dan Bredahl here on the show. They're the managing directors of Arete EPM, and they built a very successful team with an office in Hanoi, Vietnam. And I'm pumped because you're going to learn a little bit today about how working globally can ultimately be an advantage for your clients, and strategies for attracting and developing great EPM consultants on international teams, and how to show appreciation for the different cultures that are represented on your teams and why that's important. And they'll also share some great best practices for how to ensure high quality delivery when you're working in different continents and across different time zones. And finally, what makes APAC a really special place and why they love working with their team in Vietnam. Bob, Dan, how y'all doing?
Doing great today.
Fantastic. Excited to be here.
Well, hey, I'm going to hit y'all right away with our patented question to get us started. Give me your career flyover in 60 seconds, and I'm actually going to pull my phone up. We'll put a little timer on, see how y'all do. Bob, I'll have you go first. So when you're ready, hit it.
Bob Mahr, Managing Director at Arete EPM. I've been working in the EPM space for the last 12 years. Within Anaplan, I've been focused on for the last 6 years, but before then I was working in Hyperion. I came into Arete about 7 years ago to build out our consulting practice. And since then, we've been just working on expanding our own footprint. Graduated from IU, so if there's any Hoosiers listening in, hopefully we do well this week. I have a wife and I just recently had a baby girl, Amelia, so I'm working on the whole transition to being a father.
Congratulations. That's awesome. Bob, thanks so much. Dan, I'm going to hit you with the same question. Give me kind of your career flyover in 60 seconds. And when you're ready, hit it.
Chad, it's awesome to be here with you. Myself, I come from a sales business development background. I'm a managing director of business development here and sales at Arete. I've been with the company for just about a year and a half, and my focus has been to try to help the company grow. We've kind of established, some different revenue streams, whether that be through subcontracting, partnering with manufacturers, or direct work. And we're working to try to fill those different buckets and those different streams here. So primarily, as Bob has said, the focus has been on the EPM, things like Anaplan, do some work with JetOx and Workiva as well. Prior to that, I was in the security industry, selling physical security guards. I'm based here in Minneapolis, St. Paul. I'm not going to show you what it looks like outside because I'm guessing none of you want to see that much snow. So married, have a wife, a kid who is in college in Philadelphia at LaSalle. And yeah, that's a little bit about me.
Y'all crushed that. Thank you so much. So I'm going to roll right into the next question. This is a fun one that we like to do, and it's a surprise. But if you could sit down and have dinner with anyone, past or present, who would it be and why? Bob, I'll let you go first.
First thing that comes to my head would be Tiger Woods. I'm a golfer, and the guy is just a genius, not only on the golf course, but in the business world. So I'd love to sit down and pick his brain about how he does it.
That would be an amazing lunch. I try to be a golfer, but unsuccessfully, unfortunately. Dan, what about you?
I'll stick with the sports theme. For me, I think it'd be somebody like Muhammad Ali, simply because most of my adult life, Muhammad Ali had kind of already come to some of the physical challenges and wasn't able to speak. And I think it'd be interesting to kind of go back and learn a little bit about some of the challenges he faced from society, our government, etc. Along with some, I'm sure he's got some pretty good stories about some of the other people in the fight game, as well as other celebrities. I think he's one of those people that everyone kind of, I think at one point he'd been written, his name, the only person whose name appeared more in print was Jesus Christ and then Muhammad Ali. So I think that would be kind of an interesting person to chat with.
It'd be so cool to go back in time and be able to actually attend one of his boxing matches too. Well, guys, let's jump into the meat of it. Tell me a little bit about just Arete EPM and kind of your global expansion, because I know that's something y'all have done very well and you're very passionate about.
Yeah, so Arete EPM was founded right around 2012. Traditionally, we've been more on subcontracting. And like I said in my intro, I was brought in to help build out the management consulting practice. Now, I started more on the domestic side, but we have an ownership group that has connections within Vietnam. And seeing that Vietnam is an emerging market, we've set up a relationship and a team over there in Hanoi. So we actually physically have an office out there. A lot of the really big points about bringing in that team is that to have that global footprint. So yeah, the time difference can be challenging, but as a company, we're able to be nimble and support our clients in the United States as well as over in APAC. So that was where the driving focus was, to build out our team.
Very nice. And just for our audience context, when did you initially launch that office in Vietnam? How long has it been operating?
That was the summer of 2021.
Just from a couple of strategy standpoints too, having the presence here with consultants domestically in the US, as well as that team of certified folks in Vietnam, it allows us actually to sometimes cut project timelines down, because we can have people working constantly around the clock on a project. We'll have the US folks work there 8 hours, then we shift with a meeting at night, have the APAC team work. So there's that potential savings and time from sale to actually implementation being complete, as well as obviously some financial considerations. It's a little more affordable in some cases in Vietnam than it is potentially in the US.
You both have hit on this already, so we can jump to the time zone difference. Obviously presents opportunities, it sounds like, because you can have people working on this project constantly, so it can cut delivery times down, things like that. Tell me a little bit, though, about maybe some of the challenges that come with communicating across different time zones and how you are navigating that.
Yes, obviously there's a 12-hour difference. I find that one of the pitfalls that teams might make is that you try to set up the schedule and working coordination based on one team. So within that time zone is just working with the team to establish a schedule that can make work-life balance on both sides, both in the US and APAC, a lot more manageable. One of the ways we've built all that challenge is just trying to set up different schedules based on projects and coordinating around that.
Sounds like the environment you have to create internally is one of collaboration, working together across different dynamics, cultural norms, obviously the realities of the time zone as well. Tell me a little bit also, just as you're collaborating, about how you foster relationships effectively across different cultures.
Well, I think the first thing is just to understand what those differences are. I mean, I know in the United States, we have a tendency to think that we are the central of the world. But I think like with Vietnam, I'll be honest, before I started working with the team, I didn't know much outside of what I've learned in history class. So to really understand the New Year's, right? They have their Tet. It's a huge festival. And part of bridging that gap is understanding their culture, because in the US, we always want them to focus on ours. So,
yeah. And just what they're passionate about, and just asking questions like, hey, when you celebrate, what do you have to eat? Obviously here, in some cases, when we have those conversations, we're making a turkey for Thanksgiving or a ham for Christmas or whatever everyone's thing is. Well, obviously they do some different things. So it's fun when they have those holidays to kind of just take some time to ask questions around, well, what do you do for that? What does that celebration look like? So that we can kind of better understand kind of how that part of the world works and better educate ourselves as people.
I love this focus on APAC because I know it's something even within the Anaplan community might not get as much attention. What's one thing that you wish folks stateside better appreciated about APAC as a region?
What I see, Chad, is that there's always a can-do positive attitude that I've seen out of the folks that I've dealt with there. About a year and a half ago, we had a team event building in person in Las Vegas, yet our team in Vietnam stayed and actually set up a call and participated in the morning in it just so that they could feel like they were a part of our in-person thing. Whenever I'm talking with them, there's always a smile. And I'll admit sometimes I may not have the same at 8 a.m. or 8 p.m. my time. It's such a refreshing trait to see when you ask them for things. They're always accepting and having that can-do attitude. That's not something I always see here domestically.
Well, to add on that is the formality too. So everything's very formal and prepared. That's something that we were able to pick up on from them on the US team, just because they are so great at that.
That's awesome. I know one of the things you mentioned earlier was the recruiting aspect and looking for business leaders. And obviously we love recruiting. We know a lot about it. Tell me a little bit about your strategy with recruiting those resources, but not just recruiting individuals, but also then cultivating leaders across different cultures and helping them grow in their career.
From a strategy standpoint, something that we thought that was really important was that there should not be a drop off in quality of the resources that you'd receive domestically versus our office in Hanoi. And so when we started looking for people, we were looking for folks who had training, education, usually at a Western university, but not necessarily a requirement, but that kind of was the original focus. We wanted folks who obviously had fluency to speak English because we knew that the collaboration was going to need to be required between the US and Vietnam, and just also folks with that attitude who were open to education and learning. Because while a lot of folks come to EPM with their finance background, being able to build and to program and to create models is another different skill set. You want to have that openness to education and learning new skill sets.
We look for the business background, but we're also looking, whether it's domestically or international, to grow leaders rather than individual contributors. Part of that is thinking outside the box. So when we're evaluating resources, we want to hear their thoughts. We want to hear their perspective. So they come in mainly with more of the business background because, in my opinion, financial accounting is way tougher than some of the problems that I've had to deal with in Anaplan. So having that business background, although not exclusively that way, and then we can build the technical experience through trainings. To build that out, we have, in addition to our Anaplan certifications and trainings, we have a mock project, which we use to try our best to a real world life scenario. And so they'll be doing design, implement, and test throughout the whole process, and we have them come up with their own use cases so that they're using their experiences.
We had Ryan DeBeal on recently, and one of the things he talked about, because he comes from a non-traditional background, he was in oil and gas, and the thing he talked about being important when becoming an elite consultant was just having this insatiable curiosity to learn and want to grow. And it's the same thing that y'all are highlighting here of when you're looking for the right people, it's about finding someone who is growth oriented, wants to learn, has that right attitude. Like you said, Dan, to the positivity piece is crucial, and willingness to own mistakes and learn from it. I want to get y'all's thoughts on how do you ensure with working across the world that you're standardizing service and standardizing delivery. Can you talk a little bit about how you're ensuring consistency for your clients?
So to ensure that consistency, that's another part of that simulated mock project is that we are them throughout with the thought process of how we want to do things, how we want to run projects, how we want to run the organization. And so I'm really big on the hands-on training because that will help build the expertise. Mm-hmm. In supplement to that, we would have documentation and assets that we've already created to help our resources become better consultants on their programs.
And with live projects, even though it's not Bob on the project or some of our other senior consultants like Giovanni Avila, et cetera, we still have them do status checks on a weekly basis just to kind of see where things are at and to make sure that we're following all of our procedures. I believe they call it in a lot of our projects, it's called the Anaplan way. We follow that pretty religiously. And we do have those weekly checks to make sure that we're in compliance with that and that we're hitting all of those check marks. The client may not actually know that we're doing that on the background. They may not be billed for it, but it's something that we do to ensure that that quality is consistent across the board. We have a weekly team meeting here just domestically where we talk about all of our projects. And the APAC sends their update that morning that if there's any type of thing that they need, we cover it in the meeting and make sure that we get them an answer here by the end of our business week Friday so they're ready to go on Monday morning.
I think what's really unique here is how y'all have been able to share some very tactical and practical strategies for building and managing international teams, which it's a common challenge across a lot of companies that are operating in multiple countries across multiple time zones. What is next for both of you individually and at Arete?
From a sales standpoint, we are continuing to try to expand and create more opportunities for our consultants because that creates more opportunities for us to go out and recruit and use people like you, Chad, to bring us more talent.
There we go.
My goal is to actually have to call you at some point and say, hey, I need a solution architect because all of my guys are off the bench and going. So that's kind of my short-term goal. From a long-term goal, is we get some of the more of those wins is to build some potential strategy around those clients and to go out to other folks in similar industries and to spread the word about connected planning, because I don't see the need for this dissipating anytime soon.
I think short-term goal is to integrate our teams virtually, because right now, ever since COVID, we live in a virtual office. So part of that bridging the gap across internationally is trying to think of different ways to connect our resources. We had a resource, Brian Knez, who volunteered to go over to spend some time with the team in Hanoi. So he was there for a month. And part of that reason was to help standardize our product and standardize our message, because he was giving supplemental training to help us build our Anaplan expertise and leadership, but also making that personal connection. Now, the only advice that we've received is don't eat the street food. But in all seriousness, we use that. We found that to be a very, very useful way to help enable that collaboration. And we plan to do that more in the future, hopefully bring over some of our Hanoi research to the U.S. to help build.
Continuing to build collaboration by getting people in the same room together. Obviously, can't do it every day, every week, going from the U.S. to Vietnam, but whenever you can, right? This sounds like there's just a massive ROI on that time together.
Again, it's finding those ways to be creative, to find ways to talk to each other, communicate with each other, collaborate with each other through activities. I mean, they're excited about this. When we told them, they can't wait to see Bob and I on this show. So I think they're going to actually
that's
order.
Fantastic.
I think they're going to order food in and everything for it. So it's going to be kind of a good.
That makes me very excited. I love hearing that the EPM show is getting out into APAC as well. That's fantastic. Well, Bob, Dan, is there anything that we didn't cover today that you'd like to cover?
No, just appreciate the fact that you and Blake do the show. I think it's just a fantastic resource for people in the industry to learn a little bit more about it, learn about different options, career paths, because there are different roads you can go down, whether that be in the consultant side, manufacturing, or client side. I just want to say thanks for the opportunity. It's been a lot of fun.
Thanks so much for coming on, guys. We appreciate it.
Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Wherever you're consuming this, if it's YouTube, if it's Apple Podcasts, Spotify, we appreciate you. Make sure you're subscribed. We have a lot more amazing guests on the way, a lot more great content. We're doing our best to bring you value and have fun while we do it. And we really want this to be a career advantage, listening to this show, and we want you to enjoy it. So it means a lot. Make sure you're subscribed for what's to come. And also, if you're up for it, it would mean a lot if you leave us a like, a comment, a rating, a review, whatever platform you're on. That really helps, and it gets us fired up when we see those. So I appreciate you guys. Find us on LinkedIn. I'm Blake Bozarth. My co-host, Chad Pyke with a Y. Would love to connect with you there. Have an awesome day. See you next time. Peace.